Nick, have you heard?
Probably.
But seriously, I have some really big news.
Please tell me this big news that I probably already know.
Okay, you know of the music licensing site MusicBed, right?
Who doesn't know about MusicBed? They're the best place for wedding videographers to get licensed music. They have amazing artists like Chapters, Tony Anderson, Delight in the Heat, as well as hundreds of other curated artists, bands, and composers. I've been using the MusicBed since I started wedding filmmaking in 2012.
Yeah, their subscription service was a life changer for me, especially since all of their subscription music is pre-cleared for every social media platform, Facebook, Instagram, Love Stories TV, and my personal favorite, YouTube, all pre-cleared.
Dude, it's so good. But again, what's this big news that I probably already know about?
They want to sponsor our podcast.
Yeah, I know that. I was a part of the emails.
Can you at least act a little surprised?
Oh, my bad. Hang on. Seriously? They want to pay us to talk about their baller music service? A service that we both have loved and used for years? Sold. I'm in. Sign me up.
We know the time suck that is searching for the perfect song for your wedding film. MusicBed has spent years collaborating with artists, bands, and composers to make it easier than ever for anyone to find the right song for their video.
And if you're interested in a free month of a MusicBed wedding subscription...
Hold up, a free month?
Yeah, a free month of a MusicBed wedding subscription service. Head over to howtofilmweddings.com/musicbed. When you sign up, use the promo code HTFW and you will get your first month for free.
Have something about your work that speaks to a specific group of people in a very strong way. You might have a lot of people who don't like your work, but as long as the number of bookings you want a year loves your work, you are a must-have for them. Because there are a lot of people out there who do really beautiful work, but they look just like 20 other companies. So then it becomes nothing but a price competition.
Hello and welcome to the How to Film Weddings podcast. My name is Nick Miller and today I am joined by my very good friend, Mr. John Bunn. John, how you doing?
I'm doing really good. We just got through doing an awesome interview. I'll let you talk about it, but I'm really excited. I've already got a bunch of things kind of mulling over in my mind of things I want to change in the way that I shoot and tell stories. Tell them all about it.
Yeah, we had the privilege of interviewing Rick and Sara Pendergraph of PenWeddings on. If you do not know who they are, then you need to stop whatever it is that you're doing and check them out. They are amazing storytellers. How they create their videos is top notch. They're amazing. We talked about their approach. We talked about story. We talked about how to get better answers and questions and stuff from your clients and maybe connect with them better so that you can tell better stories. And we also talked about their wedding film retreat. They're putting on a retreat in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico in January. So they talk all about that. So right now we're going to jump into our podcast with Rick and Sara Pendergraph. Well, Rick and Sara, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today. We really appreciate it. For our listeners that may not know who you guys are and what you've been doing and how long you've been doing this, can you just kind of give us a quick rundown of your story and how you got your start and kind of all of that, just kind of an abridged version of that?
I feel like we told this story
I know so many times.
a lot. This is actually
probably
10 official years in business for us this year. We've been meaning to do some fun social media stuff about that, and lo and behold, I haven't gotten around to it. But yeah, so we both have a background in broadcasting. We both worked in local news. At the time we started the business, I actually had left news and was working in the media department at our church. So I'm going to let Rick go to the fun part that he loves to tell, but we might have to do the abridged version.
Yeah. So we got our video back, and we were expecting, cheesy 80s, 90s style wedding videos, and we got something back that was a little more story based, and it had montages of the day, and it was really much better than what we expected, because we both had a mutual friend that we'd worked with in news at separate times, and had several people go, just hire him to do your wedding video. And so we were like, okay, whatever.
And when we say better than expected, it's not based on what we thought of him. It's right. we were like a lot of people had a preconceived notion of what wedding videos were.
Right.
So we hadn't seen any of his work before. We just trusted him to give us what we thought we were getting, which was not that great. We thought we were going to get not that great. That's what I'm trying to say. And what we got was pretty good. It was really good. And so we were watching it one day, and Sarah turned to me and said, we could do this. And I was like, of course we could. No question. So I go about cleaning the house or mowing the yard or doing whatever. And a week later comes by, passes, and she goes, okay, I've got these 3 weddings that we're going to do. We're going to do them all for free so we can get a reel together. And I was like, whoa, girl, what are you talking about? You're serious about this wedding film video thing? She's like, yeah, I am. And pretty much that's the rest is history. When my wife gets a notion in her head, it takes, I don't know, it would take like World War III to get her to to put down what she wants to get done. And that's how our life is pretty much. Do you want to go here now?
So,
and then we go.
Yeah. So you started about 10 years ago. You did your first wedding, your first 3 weddings for free, just to kind of build up a portfolio and all that stuff. So fast forward 10 years later, right now, what are your packages and your pricing stuff? And I know, Sarah, you're really open about that online and stuff. Where are you starting at? What are you including? Just so, our listeners can kind of get an idea about that.
Yeah, we consider our system kind of a hybrid. When we started out, we were like all day coverage, long film, short film, everything under the sun.
For nothing, pretty much.
Well, what's funny is that actually when we did a handful, we did the 3 free, we did a handful of others pretty low price because they actually came to us before we had really started the company, before we'd even shot any of the freebies, but we're like, I'm not doing any more than that for free. So they were pretty inexpensive. But when we first, said, we're going to make a price, we made it $2,000, which what's funny is, at the time that felt, wow, we're starting with a pretty high price here because most of the people in the area were like $500, $600. But again, that, was everything under the sun. So then we learned that a lot of people did like hourly stuff. We're like, okay, well, this will be a way to have a lower starting price. But when people book 8 hours, 10 hours, whatever, well, then it'll be good money. So we did like an hourly rate of $400 with a 3-hour minimum. The problem was we had like 3 people in a row, I think, book the 3-hour minimum. And we couldn't upsell them to save our lives. And I know a lot of people, successfully do the method of having a not desirable starting package, whatever. So you have that lower point of entry and then you can upsell people. But we just went, you know what? I don't want to be in this position of trying to upsell and then they don't. And then I feel like I can't do a good job. So we said, let's just make our minimum, whatever our minimum is. That's going to be something we want to do. Not something we're always going, gosh darn it, I wish they hadn't booked that. So we start at 8 hours and a 4 to 8 minute highlight film. We do include full ceremony toasts with that. So I know for a lot of people that's an add-on that's included with us. And that starting price is $6,200. And then it goes up with more coverage hours if they want a longer edit. Rehearsal dinner coverage, a lot of people do that with us. So I want to say our average booking for this year is a little over 9,000.
Okay.
That's awesome.
And I am including travel cost in that too. So,
yeah.
But what it does for you when you have your minimum, something you're really happy about doing is when you book it and then 5 minutes later someone calls you and wants you to go and do something else. It could be better than the one you're doing, but still you're really gratified with the fact that, hey, I don't have to worry about.
You don't regret the booking.
Yeah, I don't regret
there's
the
never
one
that
that I just
feeling of
booked.
somebody booked my lowest.
Right. Well, yeah, you have your packages, and mine are very similar. Where that base package, whatever it is, it's a happy price for you.
Right.
So you're good with only booking that. And yeah, you might have made $1,000 more at this other one, but you're still making decently good money that you're happy to make at that base price. So that's amazing. And for you to, you're saying that you're starting about 62 and you're averaging about 9, but listeners, another thing to take in, this is year 10 for them.
Yeah.
John and I have talked about these higher prices, but we've all been doing it. I'm in year 7, you're in year 10, John's in year 13. So we've all been doing this for a while. So for you to go from 500 to 5,000 in, one season, that might not be likely. So it takes a while to do that. John, what do you have to add there?
I think that the listeners would like to know kind of how many of you guys are shooting in a year, and then tell us about like where you've traveled maybe in the last 6-12 months and where you're going in the next, like give us some highlights of like where you get to go doing this now.
We decided this year to make our goal 15 and cap at 20. We previously had years where we did 33, 30, 26, 25, and as our prices have gone up, we've been, it's been intentional. We have looked for a price that pretty much controls how many weddings we get. And so far it's really worked out. We have found kind of our price point where we're not having to turn a lot of people away. We don't have people coming in. There was a while there where, the latter half of the year, we had more and more people wanting to book, and we're like, I'm sorry, we're maxed out. We just hit a week ago, I think we hit our 20th booking for the year. So we're like, okay, we're good. We're really all over the place, and it's not like we don't necessarily have one market we consistently go back to a lot. We're about 70% out of state, 30% Oklahoma. Yeah. The furthest we've ever gone was Australia, and that was 2 years ago.
Yeah. Nice.
So that was awesome.
The flight there is miserable. but once you get there, it's really nice. It's really awesome. It's really cool.
Oh, I bet.
This year, I know we have some California, Texas. We tend to get a lot of kind of random little places. We just did one in Manchester, Pennsylvania.
Nantucket.
We just got back from Nantucket and Manchester, Pennsylvania. We've done some like New Harmony, Indiana, New Hope, Pennsylvania. We've done a lot of little towns actually.
Houston, we've done a lot of Houston, Austin. Not as many in Dallas as we'd like, but we've got one coming up in Dallas here. We're in Fort Worth, I guess. Don't want to upset any Dallas people by saying we're going to.
Oh, yeah.
Whoa, Texas
people
listen hard to this podcast.
Right. So, but we're kind of all over.
So where are the people how are these people finding you guys? Where do you find most of your traffic? I mean, if you're going all over to Manchester or to, wherever you got, every time I see you're somewhere, it's like, well, that's such a cool spot. How in the world? What are you guys doing where are people finding you?
Well, I think we kind of caught on to the whole YouTube thing pretty early on. And our YouTube following is pretty strong, I think.
For a while there, we were, I want to say, probably had the most subscribers of any wedding videographer that at least we were aware of. I know Film Poets has now handily doubled the following we had. But for a long time, wedding videographers, the professional ones, wouldn't touch YouTube because it was not professional. It was all Vimeo.
Right.
We've always done Vimeo for our website, for embedding, for submitting to blogs. But we've been on YouTube, since
pretty much
almost. I want to say since 2010.
You guys have had
and then
several.
It also helps.
Yeah, go ahead.
And then it also helps whenever you have, YouTube videos that go massively viral and you get, 9 and 10 million views on a single one. That just helps add to.
It kind of adds to it. Yeah.
Yeah, it helps a little bit.
It is. So. We've only had one hit 9 million. It's not like that's every other week or anything.
They get on average between 5 and 10 million views per film, is what I heard Sara and Rick say.
Right.
I wish.
But yes, your following is huge. You guys do a great job about creating stuff, and that's where I think we want to move the conversation, is talking about what is it about your films and your approach that would cause somebody from the middle of Pennsylvania or Texas or Idaho or wherever to say, oh my goodness, I saw this film on YouTube, I want them there. What do you guys attribute that to?
I think mostly it's the connection people are able to have. When you look at the kind of thing that does go viral or at least do well, whether it be, Facebook, YouTube, whatever, it's usually got to have, if we're speaking wedding videos, an incredible wow factor. Like everyone wants to see this $2 million or celebrity or whatever wedding, or it needs to have an emotional connection. I need to feel something. And that's what we try with all of our films. We're very, we've heard a lot of new words lately that I like better. I would say vulnerable, but some people that's almost like a scary word. or no, that was, sorry, I was thinking Raw. I said Raw.
Right.
And then it was actually shout out to Johnny Apple in Dallas, he's the one who said vulnerable. That was when I said Raw, he was like, well, vulnerable. And, it's very, we don't feel like we're only seeing the perfect, pretty, slow-mo details. We're really seeing these people at their core and not who they truly are. They can't fake it. We're not, there are ways with, there are certain techniques, easier with photo than video, but there are certain techniques you can do to maybe, trying to think how to put this delicately, hide maybe not the most attractive personality. If someone is being difficult or not being friendly or not very loving and they're really high maintenance on their wedding day, but they have a gorgeous event, if you shoot it right, you can hide that. The way we work, it's really hard to hide that. We're very raw and vulnerable with the way we shoot people, and we don't do a lot of stuff that is just the pretty shots and the detail shots and the slow-mo portrait session. It's a lot of the natural moments. So I think people have a connection with that. To get back to your original question, I think when you have that emotion, people connect with that.
And I'll brag on my wife for just a quick second, because she does all the creative editing for us. I've dabbled and gotten into some creative stuff for our corporate brand here lately. And so,
and it was great.
Thank you. But she is so meticulous in the things that she looks at and that she listens to. She'll cut bites up to take out ums and things that might distract you. She'll even take out, like, she'll come and go, I don't like that shot. I'm like, it looks beautiful. She's like, yeah, but that guy in the background is like doing this to his nose, and that distracts me. And I'm like, didn't even see it.
Yep. That's awesome.
And so I think even though I didn't see it, and I see a lot of things like that, I just think the subconscious of people when they're watching something, even the slightest nose touch or a car driving by or whatever, can pull you out of the film and take you out of that emotional state. And she's so incredibly good at knowing the timing, the right things to put in the film, and how to edit it. And I think that's a big reason why people love him so much.
Yeah. I was
look at them over there, Nick. They were like about to kiss, I think so. Sure. Kissing is allowed. Yeah, there you go. Come on, guys, get a room.
I remember I went to your WPPI class, Sarah. I don't know, 5 years ago, 6 years ago. It was the one whenever you showed the scene from Moneyball, the baseball scene from Moneyball. Okay, I was in that class, and one of the things that I took away from that in there was how you showed us a video that had like no natural audio in it. And you were like, oh, this is really nice. This is really pretty. But then you played it again, and then you added in, background sound effects. And, it wasn't like speaking audio, but it was, just natural audio stuff. And then after you showed us with that, we're like, oh yeah, that's really good. Then you played the first clip again without that audio. And you were like, okay, now, and everyone was like, oh, this looks nice, but there's something off about it. And so, that whole thing of learning about that and how to do that and add to your films just adds so much. I'm sure you remember this. I remember it. We did a one-day mentorship,
Gosh, what was that, like 6 years
a few years ago. And I think I was sat, 4 years ago, 5 years, somewhere in there. And I think I was sitting right where Rick is sitting right there, watching you edit on a big, 50-inch TV or something. And one of the things that has stuck with me, and I think I talked about it on our live recording we did with Matt Johnson, about you brought up the idea, and I don't know if you called this or this is what I was ghost mouth, and that was where people's mouths are moving. This is what I call it. I don't know what you called it, but this is what I've coined it. People's mouths are moving, but you can't hear anything or you can't see anything. And ever since we did that 5 years ago, now that's a huge thing that has stuck with me, just being meticulous. Oh, this is such a pretty shot of the bride and groom but she's talking to him. And so now I have to figure out, if I'm going to use that shot, I have to figure out a different way to use it, to do that. So I have learned a ton from you, from that class, from our mentorship. And there's several people that I contribute to me being where I am today. And, you learning from you is definitely one of those things where I am partly because of what you and what Rick have done. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
That was kind of a long-winded.
No, but that means a lot. That's, we tell we've told many people we wouldn't be at all where we were if we didn't immediately dive into industry events. We very much date ourselves when we say this, but Weeva, which is no longer around, I think they still have a Facebook group, but the actual event ended, I don't know, 6 years ago. But that was, one of the first things we did was try to figure out what can we do to start to learn more, to grow. And I mean, that was a huge eye opener because I'll admit when we first started, we're like, we're going to do a really good job and we're doing awesome stuff. And this is going to be so much better than like what people think a wedding video is. And then we went to Weeva and saw the kind of stuff that, Jason McBanawa and Ray Roman and all these people were already doing. And we're just like, oh, we suck. I mean, it was awesome and like kind of a downer at the same time. So we're like,
oh,
dang.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So obviously, I'm going to skip ahead to this one. Story and your approach for getting the best story. Like, I think that if we polled, 100 professional wedding videographers and they said, who tells the best stories? If you guys are not number one, you're definitely in the top, 2 or 3 of able to tell the best stories. So why don't you guys just talk about your approach to that? Like, how do you pull things out of a wedding day? How do you get the best? Like, how are you communicating with your clients beforehand? What are you doing on the wedding day? What's your approach so that you get the best stories from your clients, on the wedding day?
We always make sure to meet or talk, FaceTime, Skype beforehand, since a lot of our couples aren't local. And we make sure it's not a rushed meeting. Like, we want to make sure there's plenty of time. I won't get into the whole thing because it's a long story, but we had one time where they were kind of tight on time. We Skyped for 15 minutes, ended pretty quickly. And it wasn't until the end of the night in one of the toasts that there's this nugget that we're like, that's the story I would have told today had I known that. And so we like for these conversations to take their time, to not go into it. We ask the typical questions about schedule and wedding details. And we start with, how'd you meet? How'd you get engaged? But beyond that, it's usually when the conversation gets away from them thinking they need to answer a certain way, that something will come up and we'll go, that's it. And they're even sometimes like, really? We're like, oh yeah, that's the story we want to tell. Cause we'll get off track. We'll be talking about our cats and pets and travel. And eventually that's usually what leads to that moment where we're like, okay, now that we're just talking about life, lots of times that's where we find the story we want to tell.
I think it has to do a lot with the chemistry too. I mean, we had a couple weddings this year where we didn't quite have that chemistry with the couple. And it was harder. It was harder to get them to be vulnerable and to relax in front of the camera and tell their story. And then we had one just this last weekend, which it was like we had met a year ago because we had another wedding in Pennsylvania. So we met up for dinner, sat and had drinks for 2 hours and just talked. And we built that chemistry between them and that bond already, and continue to follow them, through social media and stuff like that and comment on their things. So when they see you for that first time, once you haven't seen them for a year or the last time you talked to them, they give you the big hug and they welcome you into the day or the rehearsal, that kind of deal. And at that point, it's almost like you're back there that year ago or that 6 months ago when you had that dinner or had those drinks, and that time in between is like it hasn't even been there, and it's like you're right back to where you were the time before, and it's so much easier for them to relax and for you to pull the story from what you've already discussed
on the wedding day.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is you guys are taking time to invest in your clients before the wedding and actually spend time with them, whether it's, through a FaceTime or, if it's local, maybe going out to dinner or, something like that. But taking that extra step so that they are comfortable with you guys. So whenever you try to ask them questions to get them into that vulnerable spot, they're more likely to open up because they know you.
Exactly.
And I think it's helped too over time. The way we do stories on wedding days has evolved. And it was kind of a happy accident. Having the broadcasting background, the first couple times we did this where we it wasn't an intentional thing before, but we happened to be meeting with a couple. I actually specifically remember one. The funny thing is, I remember the couple, I remember the wedding. I don't remember what the story was, but we're like, that's really cool. We should have them tell that. And we did it more like a sit down, look off camera, news interview kind of thing, because that was our background. But then we had a wedding maybe a year later, and we had a really quick story we knew we wanted them to tell, but things were running behind. We weren't going to have time to do that sit down interview style. And the bride was getting her hair done. And thankfully she was really chill, didn't care about the fact that she wasn't totally done being made up yet. And I was like, well, listen, I know we're tight on time, but I just want to get you to say this one cool thing you guys told us about your story. So since you're getting your hair done, I mean, why don't you just kind of tell it while you're getting your hair done. Mm-hmm. And she had a bunch of her girls around her. And so they started interacting with her, and it became this very natural, candid, organic. Yes, I know that's a popular word right now. Very organic moment. And we were like, that worked out really well. It wasn't intentional. It was because we didn't have time to do it the way we wanted. But out of that came the way we do it now, where we like to have the bride tell her bridesmaids, the groom tell his guys, sit down, chill.
And it's kind of been a goal of mine to try to get that story done in a more creative way. Like one time I had guys were out just fishing. So I mic'd the groom, and as he's casting out, he's like, oh yeah, we met this one, we went to this bar or whatever, blah, blah, blah. And so it seems like, it's even more natural organic that way.
We've had guys fishing, playing golf.
Just, when they have their pre-wedding outing lunch or whatever at Buffalo Wild Wings or whatever, just throw a mic on them and let them go.
Nice product placement.
Thank you.
I've already done it. I feel bad. I'm like, hey, Topo Chico.
This is not sponsored. This is not sponsored by Buffalo Wild Wings, although it is delicious. Just as a side note. So, okay, you're meeting with your couples. Like, let's say we have some couples in 2020 couples. They're inquiring with you. They book. You're setting up this meeting to either talk online or in person. Usually an hour or so, maybe.
Yeah.
We usually make sure we have an hour and a half free in our schedule. But.
Okay. So for people listening, like if they're wanting to start meeting with their brides and grooms, like what kinds of tips would you maybe give them to be able to organically ask questions and get story, and what things should they be looking for to kind of maybe dive a little deeper with them? Because I think that comes naturally to you guys because you're news anchors and you got the journalism background and stuff. And
we talk a lot. Shut up.
But like what should somebody 2 years in, they just booked a bride and they want to get better at their story, what kinds of things should they be asking them? What should they be looking for to be pulling from that?
Well, I think first and foremost, they just need to be genuine with the couple or with the bride or whoever in their meeting. Be genuinely interested in their story. And that way you're actually just talking as friends instead of, what should I be asking you? Ask the typical things of how did you meet, or what was the engagement story like? I always like to ask, once we've kind of gone through some of those, I don't know if you call them fixated or staged questions or whatever, but
just the standard,
the
starters,
standard,
maybe.
Thank you, the standard or the starters. I like to go, what do you guys like to do with, with each other on your day off? Do you have any hobbies that you both share? And just kind of delve into what their lives are. Do you have pets? Since we have pets, if they have dogs or whatever, it's always a good place to start. That kind of thing. You like to go skateboarding? I don't know, whatever. Just ask them whatever.
Well, and this goes along with being genuine. Be a good listener. Don't be thinking so much about the next thing you need to say or the next thing you need to ask that you miss something. And what's funny is, I thought this was really awesome. This was something we were taught as reporters, as journalists, is listen to the answers you're getting. Don't always just be thinking about checking off the questions you already know you want to ask. And then at our last wedding film retreat, which I know we'll get into some of that later, but at our last one, Matt and Pacey of Film Poets spoke. And I thought it was interesting how that's something very specific that Matt even taught. And this is, we had never discussed this topic with them. But he mentioned the same thing and said like how they had a couple they were talking with. And I think the couple maybe gave an answer to a question and Matt was thinking about the next thing he wanted to ask. And Pacey was the one who went, I'm sorry, wait, can we go back to whatever and then flush that out? And I think that's where a lot of good stuff comes from, when you learn to really listen and think, wait, I think there was a little nugget there, or I think there's a story there. That you're like, there'll even be times where if we are meeting or Skyping or FaceTiming with a couple, something where we can see them, not just on the phone, and they might say something and kind of give each other a look. I'll even go, okay.
What was
that about?
What's going on there? Noticing those little things lots of times leads to good content.
So tell me, what CRM do you use? If you're not sure or you don't know what a CRM is, I'm about to save you a lot of time and therefore money. CRM stands for Customer Relationship Management. Basically, a CRM is an online service that helps you better serve your clients. HoneyBook is both mine and John's CRM of choice. We absolutely love it. HoneyBook allows us to do all of our correspondence, contracts, and payments all in one place. One of the features that I love is the automated workflow. We all have emails that we send out to all of our clients, right? At 6 months, 3 months, 1 month, the week of. All of us do it. Automated workflows make it so that those emails can go out automatically. Since I don't have to take time to, 1, remember to send them out, and 2, to write them, I save time and make more money by working more efficiently. Are you interested in saving time on the business side of things? Go to howtofilmweddings.com/honeybook for a free 1-week trial. Also, because the Honeybooks really like me and John, we can give you $200 off of your first year, and that also comes with a 60-day money-back guarantee. So what are you waiting for? Go to howtofilmweddings.com/honeybook to start saving lots of time in your business. Oh yeah, legally I have to tell you that John and I are affiliates of HoneyBook.
I think it's like less hard than people think to get these, like just asking what are your hobbies, like feels so like, well, duh. Mm-hmm. But like people want to talk about themselves. Yeah. And if you just take the time to give them that opportunity and then listen, you can start really grabbing a lot of information from them. So I guess my like follow up to that question would be, okay, now we've done this meeting. We know a lot about the couple. What is the plan going into the wedding? Because there's so many of your films where it's just like, man, how did they get that? How'd they know to get that? Or how'd they, the one that comes to mind where like the couple was like like they ran across a bridge or something at sunrise or what, like, does your mind just start going into this, okay, I can feel this story being told this way, and you start pitching them ideas? Or do you like, you're pulling from these initial meetings, but like, how are you going from that to making sure that they put it on screen the way you want them to do it?
A little bit of both. I mean, with that couple, we did, once they told us their story, we said we'd like to schedule another session with you guys. I know a lot of people call them adventure sessions. We started calling ours story sessions, because for us, it's less about
that's cool,
the pretty location and more about a relevant location. And a lot of that came about because of our couples. Like, it's no secret. We've told many people this. We've had numerous destination weddings where, like, the day after, we even offered like a free day after session. We weren't going home right away. We were going to be around. It was the kind of thing where it won't take that much time, really, but it was just, a mountaintop or somewhere we weren't able to go on the wedding day. I think we've had 1 out of, 20 couples take us up on it. And I mean, again, this is when we said like, hey, we're going to be around. You guys want to go get this one shot for free? We have had some people come back and be like, instead of that, can we do rehearsal dinner coverage for free? We're like, no, because that's a whole other world of setup and editing. We're talking about, it takes longer to get to the place than it does to actually do the shoot. We just want this cool shot of you. And most of our couples are so about people and real moments and story that we realized they're just not interested in that. We've only had a handful that really cared about that. So anyway, story session. So yeah, that couple were like, hey, we think it'd be really cool to do another session with you guys who are actually running across the bridge where you always did your runs, where he proposed. We had another couple that essentially started dating with like group meetings at Waffle House. So we shot them at Waffle House. We got permission to go in
awesome.
And shoot them doing that. And so we definitely, in that regard, and it's intentional, we're pitching it. But I think one of the things too that's big for us, and I hope I'm not like breaking any rules by jumping ahead. I saw one of the questions someone mentioned on Facebook, and I feel like this ties in with what you just asked.
Yeah. You can't break any rules here. Okay. We set them up, and we don't have rules. So Rick can do whatever he wants. For sure.
Yeah, well, might not want to say that.
No,
you just opened up a whole can of worms. But he's gonna get us in trouble now. We try really hard to capture, again, as many genuine, organic, authentic moments as we can on a wedding day. You'll notice we don't have a lot of gimbal shots. We don't have a lot of those posed moments throughout preps, but I think a lot of that is because I just want to be ready to go, handheld. If a moment happens, like we spend a lot of time just observing, watching. We try to be as creative as we can without staging. We will put people like in good light. But one thing, and this, I don't know, maybe it was like 4 or 5 years ago, it hit me to start being more intentional about looking for like reflections. How can I get a cool shot of a normal moment without telling the couple to do something, without telling the bride or groom to do something? So I'll have times where people look at me and they're like, "Are you okay?" Because I've got like my head on a table. And I don't even know if I'm still like in the shot right now. They're like, "Are you all right?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm just seeing if I can get a cool shot on this table. If I can get a cool reflection here." Rick had an awesome shot like 2 years ago, 3 years ago,
I don't know.
where
was that the last time he had an awesome shot?
Well, yeah.
Probably. Yeah, to be honest. Yeah.
This one time, Rick got a really
Nick
cool shot.
with the zingers.
I want to say
Nick and Rick combo.
I'm still trying to fake it. I'm still trying to make it. Fake it until I make
fake
it.
it till you make it. Were you gonna do a detail shot?
Yeah, I was just getting, like the guy's watch and tie and cufflinks together, and I was setting them up, and I was crouched down, and I realized that in the cufflinks, I could see the window really nicely. And I thought, wow, I should put him in that window. And I just put on the 100 millimeter lens and said, put your shirt on right there. And it was really cool how he put it on.
But like a reflection of the groom getting ready in his cufflinks.
And that was cool.
Super rad.
And that was a really cool shut. And so trying to
It's
find...
the best I've done since. That's 3 years ago.
Here's the funny thing. I actually showed a portion of that video in a class we were teaching, and I was showing it for another shot. So I get done with like the minute-long chunk that I showed and said something about, it's not always what we think lighting-wise. It was something about the bride's dress. And everyone's like, "Okay, cool, but hang on a second. What about that cufflink shot? Who got that? That was awesome." And it was so like what the whole point of why I was showing that clip got completely blown over because everyone just wanted to know about that cufflink shot.
I totally stumbled into it. It was such a mistake. But it was a good
Rick
mistake.
stealing the thunder, of course.
But now I'm looking for all kinds of little
But that's the
like
thing
that.
too, is there are so many awesome shots out there that you don't notice if you don't learn to start looking at things from all angles, looking at reflections. And that's one reason too that we're not as forceful, I guess you would say, about location, lighting. Like, believe me, we still try. But we've had a couple weddings recently where the bride was not set up where I wanted her or would have liked her for makeup. We still had natural light. It's not like we were in a dark hole. If it's like a dark corner, you can bet I'm gonna fight it. But they were situations where it's not like we were right by the window with that beautiful side lighting and that beautiful shadow and everything that you'd love. But I'm like, okay, I can tell this is not a situation where I'm gonna be able to move her. And one time I even asked, and the makeup artist said no. And it was one of the couples that we didn't have quite that relationship with. It was like a last minute booking that was a referral. Huge. And so she even said no. The bride was like, "Nope, we're good." Like she just wanted to get it done with. I'm like, I'm not gonna fight. So instead I look for mirrors, reflections, cutting off half the shot with a wall, trying to find a way to make it creative without it having to be that perfect, what we always want, because you don't always get that.
Right. That's such a huge thing. We fall into our what we always do routine, right? And so you saying, okay, I'm going to get the normal groom stuff that I get, but how can I do the same thing but just shift it a little bit different and maybe make it look a little bit more interesting?
Yeah.
Pausing really quick. Do you guys need to restart your camera? Your Sony?
I don't know. I'll
or
check. We actually have a new good there.
Yeah.
Okay, if you don't need to, that's fine. I didn't know.
We'd have to show a black screen for like 9 minutes and just hear their voices.
No, we got
Picture of them being in their hats and stuff that they had.
We've got an adapter to run it on AC, so it's still rolling.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Because we knew that might be
We got it just for you guys, by the way.
Oh man, you guys are awesome.
Well, I've been meaning to get one for time lapses anyway, so this just finally forced me to make the decision.
Just for you guys.
Thanks, Rick.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Okay. One thing that this always interests me because I am a part of a husband and wife team. My wife Jen, she's in this with me. So can you guys just kind of talk about your dynamic as a husband and wife team and how you kind of break up maybe on the wedding day, but then kind of also
we've broken up a couple times on wedding days.
We've broken up a few times on wedding days.
I break up. It's over.
But we always get back together.
I'll finish this wedding with you, but after this, it's over. And then there's a soft song or something played in the reception. I look over and I'm like, okay, I'll stay.
Jeez, Nick, these two, they need to get a room. Like, for real.
You don't even talk.
okay.
Sorry. Back to the question.
What was the question again? How do we break
How
up?
do we break up the wedding day? Not how do we break up on the wedding day.
Gotcha.
Rick shoots the guys. I shoot the girls, typically. There are times where if the schedule allows, we'll double up. Like if they're getting ready close to each other, we'll say, what do you have going on right now? You want to come double shoot the story or the letter reading or whatever. That doesn't always happen, but it's nice when it does.
Yeah.
And then we're pretty much together the rest of the day. We still do have...
We have our set roles like for pre-ceremony, post-ceremony, reception, that kind of thing. When we're getting ready for a ceremony, I'm setting up tripods and she's doing audio, and it's kind of a race to see who get done with their things, to see who gets to put the cameras together, that kind of stuff. And I'm
usually getting detail shots. He's getting people arriving. If it's a cool setting to get shots of people showing up. He spends a lot of time on 70 to 200. I spend a lot more time on 50, 35, getting more close, wide shots. And then editing, I don't know. Well, have we answered wedding day enough? I'm trying to think if you want us to get more specific with that.
Yeah. I was just kind of wondering your breakdown.
Yeah, we definitely have our set roles. And it's important, by the way. I mean, I will throw this out there too, to make sure, even if you have your set role, that you know what the other one, like what else they need to do. For a long time, Rick shot with me whenever he could, but he still had his full-time job when I had been full-time with the business for like 5 years. And there were a lot of parts of the day, like the audio gear, that he never messed with. So he didn't know. He didn't know my routine. He didn't even know how some of these pieces of equipment worked. And there was a point where when he joined me full time, I was like, I know this is kind of my baby, but you need to know how to do all this in case we ever get in a bind. And we did have a wedding like that once where things were running so far behind, and it was an out of town wedding. So we only had one vehicle, our rental car. And they were like, well, can't you guys the van will drop the bride off and she'll walk down the aisle. So you can just run in and be ready to go, right? I'm like, no, we have audio to set up. We have 5 cameras to set up. This isn't like a drop me off, give me 2 minutes and I'm ready to go kind of thing. And they said, well, can Rick go set up and you stay with the bride? Because like she was still getting in her dress and it was time to be setting things up.
And I said, you bet I can. And I did. Yeah.
And
Perfect.
2 years earlier, the answer would have been, no, Rick cannot set the wedding up without me because he doesn't even know how this piece of gear works.
Right.
So whatever your roles are, you still need to know the entire process in case there's ever a situation where
an illness, someone can't make it, to the wedding, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's huge. That's huge. Definitely communicating with that. And then, Sarah, you do most of the editing, right?
So Rick does all the culling now. Like he culls through the footage, he syncs everything. He cuts the ceremony and the toasts, and then he hands it off to me. And then I do all the creative edits. So it's, time-wise, well, I was going to say pretty fairly split, but no, I spend way more time on the creative edits than he does culling and doing doc edits. So
yeah.
And then she'll give it back, and I'll color grade the doc edits from the stuff she's
based on the grading I did on the highlight.
Yeah. So that kind of stuff.
That's good.
John? Sounds like a really good husband-wife duo dynamic, that thing that I don't have that I'm envious of. But So talking, on the story side of things and you guys' roles, like I know that you'll do like interviews, you'll record speeches, different things like that. I guess the question that I'm kind of wanting to get at is like, how do you like decide who asks? Are you asking these brides like questions on the wedding day? I mean, is Rick asking the guys? Does he have prompts based on the story? Like, I think that a lot of people don't know kind of what they should be trying to ask even on the wedding day if they know the story, like if they know that the couple loves to run. Like, do you guys talk beforehand and say, hey, Rick, you need to make sure he gets this part of the story, or what do you guys approach for that?
Yeah, well, in that hour and a half or however long we Skype, Sarah's furiously taking notes on her computer. So we'll have page and a half of different story elements that we might want to tell. And we usually just narrow it down to one, maybe two story angles that we want to do. So when we go into the wedding day, we're not spending another hour and a half interviewing them over all these questions that we'd already asked them. We already know which angle of the story we want to go. And it also helps if they book rehearsal dinner coverage, because then when we're going through toast, a lot of times that story will come up in the toast and we'll go, okay, yeah, that's the story that we definitely want to tell. Or sometimes once we even changed our focus and went with a different story in that way because of the toast. And so go in focused and go in, narrowly focused on what you want to talk about, because like she said, there's not a lot of time, depending on how many hours of coverage that they booked to get that story in. The photographer's like, I got to get this shot, and the makeup artist's like, I got to do this. So be narrowly focused with it.
Yeah, I think that's something that we in the wedding world kind of miss out on pre-production. Like the pre-production phase. And that's exactly what you guys are doing, with the meeting and talking to them, is writing that stuff down. I have a friend in town who does a bunch of commercial work, and he's like, I could never do what you do because pre-production is so important to me. Like, I'm showing up on my film days and like I have my shot list. I know exactly what I'm going to cover, when you're just kind of winging it. So you're taking a big chunk of guesswork out of what you are going to film by talking to them beforehand, so that you already have a really good idea of the things that you should film, of the questions you should ask, of all that stuff. So that's.
And we'll tell. Oh, sorry, go ahead, John.
Yeah, go ahead. I was just say, when you know that, like when you know that running is important to them, or if you know, like I'm sure you give prompts to them, on the wedding day to say, hey, let's talk. Make sure to mention this when you're telling the girls this, or hey, speech giver, that's the kind of thing that I think that most people are just forgetting, is like, oh, if we know this, we can actually tell them, like, to make sure to mention this kind of thing, but like let them do it however they want to. Correct? I mean, is that what you guys are?
It helps too to like. They are very usually, no matter how great our relationship is, people are like, oh my gosh, what am I supposed to say? Like, they think it's got to be very scripted, and so it helps to, when you're doing it, be very just like, I don't know, loose sounds kind of be loose. That sounds a little weird, but casual. Yes, thank you. Be very casual with them. Be like, oh my gosh, no, just that one funny part, or that one really sweet part of the story that you told us. Remember when we talked? And yeah, just tell your girls, like, oh, tell them that one thing, and almost say it like, almost intentionally being informal. I don't want to be like, okay, so what we're gonna do is record you talking about. And sometimes we'll even play like I don't want to say forgotten, like we're not like lying, like, oh, I don't remember this, but you act like, oh yeah, what was that one really funny part of your story about Waffle House? And that way, you're acting in a way that gets them talking about it real fun, more chill, instead of it being like, and now I'm going to ask you, tell me about those meetings. That, we try to be pretty cool about it, in the sense of being like, oh, I'm just like a friend talking with you. And one of Rick's favorite things, girls are usually pretty good about it, regardless. It's not like a 100% thing, but typically the girls just have a good time with it. Guys, lots of times, are a little more like,
yeah, they're like, what are we doing? Yeah. And I'm like, we're doing story time, you guys. This will be great. He's going to tell you about this time with his cow, and it's going to be awesome. And you're going to think, wow, dude, I want to party with that guy. And just interact with them. And I'll tell him, I'll say, I'm just going to let him start. And then if you guys may not know the story, go ahead and ask him questions. Go ahead and go ahead and be me in this situation. And then I fade back into the shadows, basically. and I'm no longer there, and they're all focused on the groom asking these questions about the cow.
But he's found
really
that actually has happened a lot with the guys, where girls might all know the story by heart because they've told it a million times, you know.
The guys
in
aren't
their
as open
pajamas
with
and
other
drinking
guys.
wine and whatever. The guys truly may not know the story, so then they actually start asking questions, and it does become genuinely organic conversation between them.
Man, all that's so good. Just thinking of different ways to kind of come at this thing to tell a story. Man, I love just, you know, you sharing the nuggets of information that you guys have learned, you know, for doing this over a while. So I don't even know how long we've been talking.
I was
It feels
just
like, you know, a little bit.
I
but
think
it's,
we're at like 45
I think we
minutes.
still have.
Okay. We've been doing this for a hot minute, and so we do have some questions from our Facebook group that we definitely want to get into. But before we get into that, you guys have something coming up next January that is a big deal, and we want to give you a moment to talk about the wedding film retreat. So why don't you kind of give everyone your spiel about what it is, who's going to be there, when it is, and I know there are limited spots available, so if you're interested in this, you're going to want to sign up like right now.
Yeah.
So
We have
so why don't you just talk about
We
that?
have about 8 spots, 5 rooms left at the villa. So we still, you know, if people want to share a room, whether it's a team or you just want a roommate, we would love to pack the house like we did last time. We started these a few years ago, and our goal was we wanted to create a somewhat intimate, fun workshop, you know, that wasn't just classroom all the time. We wanted to make something that's a full event, that's a getaway. And it has evolved, you know, over the years. And last year was absolute blast. Puerto Vallarta, we have a private villa. So we have this villa all to ourselves with a staff. So the staff cooks, cleans.
2 swimming pools.
2 infinity pools overlooking the ocean.
All inclusive.
Sounds terrible.
All inclusive, yes, everything. And, you know, we'll be honest, when we first put this out there, the villa in Mexico, we weren't sure how that would go over being a not typical hotel environment. How are people going to feel about being basically in this house together the whole time? It was awesome. It made for a really special, I don't want to get like too cheesy here, but I would say bonding experience.
And our group last year was so amazing. I mean, from the moment the first people walked into the door, I mean, the chemistry between everybody was amazing. Everybody wanted to know where everyone was from, and you know how long you've been doing it, and this is so cool.
No egos.
No ego.
Check your egos at the door.
Yeah, there
were.
were.
You know, we didn't have to tell people that. We didn't have to be like, you know, we don't want to act that way. Everyone was, you know, like best friends by the time the week was over. So obviously we're hoping to have the same thing this January.
So you know, you kind of had me, you know, whenever you're like villa in Mexico overlooking the ocean, you know, all inclusive, all you could. But I mean, you guys are obviously going to be there. But, you know, you also have some people coming in to help you out with some teaching and that kind of stuff. And some people that our listeners might be interested in meeting and hanging out with. So why don't you just share, you know, who else is going to be there?
We have Henry Martins, John and Kay Snyder, and Matt Johnson coming to teach classes as well. And we are making sure we're covering, you know, some business aspect of things, some creative aspects. We want to do things that give people a well-rounded, I guess, experience of learning. So regardless of where you are in your business, you can walk away with something that you can apply. And we do a pretty big chunk of classes the first 2 days. Or, well, I guess we have like a welcome dinner. And then the first 2 days after that, Monday, Tuesday, we have a big chunk of time that's class. And we do some hands-on shooting as well. We even had, you know, last time we had just some kind of like spontaneous, okay, it's after dinner, we have some downtime. Anyone who doesn't want to swim right now, we'll go do a film breakdown in the living room. You know, we're just hanging out on the couches next to the pool.
Yeah, and I think the greatest part, I mean, the classroom setting is really awesome, and there's a lot of great knowledge that's being dropped.
And it's overlooking the ocean,
overlooking the oceon. But it's
always a
it's the time at dinner. It's the time in the pool. It's the tidbits and the tips that everyone gives everyone else while they're, you know, walking through downtown Puerto Vallarta, or
it's not just us and the speakers. Like everyone else is sharing.
Exactly, and these online communities like the one that you guys have started, which is amazing. They're really great, but they're much more enhanced. They're much more enhanced by going to things like Venture and the Wedding Film and Treat,
100%.
because now you can put, a personality, an actual person-to-person relationship with the guy that you're yelling at in the forums instead of just, So it's really cool.
Yeah, no. Yeah, that's great. And where, if people want more information or if they're interested in gobbling up, one of those few spots as of recording that you have left, where can they go to get more information?
weddingfilmretreat.com.
weddingfilmretreat.com, and we will link that in the show notes and all of that below, so you can sign up for that. So John, Rick mentioned this just a second ago, but we do have a Facebook group. Did you know that?
What?
I know.
Tell me more.
I just found it last week. I don't know how I wasn't part of it.
More, tell me more.
All you have to do is in Facebook search How to Film Weddings, and our Facebook group should pop up, and you can join it.
And if they'll let me in, they'll let you in for sure.
We let Rick in. He is in. He is approved.
And so in our group, John a few days ago posted, say, hey, we're having the amazing PenWeddings on. We're going to talk to them. Does anyone have any questions? And we have a few questions that we pulled. John, why don't you start?
Thousands came in minutes.
There were 10.
Like, 10 freaking weddings is going to be on. I'll start with a question from, let's see. I haven't read through these since a couple days ago. Let's see. Should I just start with John Snyder's question, since he's probably teeing it up for him? Okay. John Snyder, who was on our podcast just recently, he says, I think
episode 41.
Yeah. Okay. I think he said, I think Sara and Rick talking about how they grew and nurtured a high-end brand in what most would consider a smaller market would be extremely relevant to a lot of filmmakers who don't believe their markets can sustain higher pricing. Even if they travel for many weddings, it's still great for filmmakers who might feel trapped because they aren't in a big market. So speak on that.
Yeah, I could go like a million different directions with that. So one quick thing I will say is we made price increases very gradual and several times a year. Instead of doing big jumps, we might raise our prices by 200 or 400 throughout a year. And so that way you didn't have that situation where my friend just booked you a week ago and now you're $1,000 more, or, it was always a gradual increase. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't mean we didn't still have that happen if it was like, my friend used you 3 years ago.
And each increase was a scary moment. I remember thinking, is the phone going to ring? And it kept ringing, and we kept raising, and it kept ringing. I was like, okay, that's cool.
But it also, you do have to learn, and I've noticed this a lot too, a lot of talk lately, and we were in this position as well, about people being nervous about their bookings. And coming into 2019, we were behind where we usually are as we come into a new year. But we've still hit our goal. And I think a lot of people are finding that couples are just waiting later to book certain services, even if you're high priced. So you have to be careful to not give up too quickly. And I know it's hard when you're trying to put food on the table. But just because you don't have a certain number by a certain time, you don't all of a sudden drop your prices. I think you have to give it time. And actually, that's one of the things, too, that we would do a lot is when we hit a number where we said, okay, we would like more this year, but we don't have to have more. That's a good time to try new prices. Because then if things really drop off, if bookings are really bad, you can go back if you need to. But lots of gradual price increases. I think one of the big things, too, though, is making sure you have something about your work that speaks to a very specific group of people in a really strong way.
Say that again. I want you to say that again because I think the listeners really need to hear that.
Have something about your work that speaks to a specific group of people in a very strong way. You might have a lot of people who don't like your work, but as long as the number of bookings you want a year loves your work, you are a must-have for them. Because there are a lot of people out there who do really beautiful work, but they look just like 20 other companies. So then it becomes nothing but a price competition. I see Nick wanting to say something.
Well, I one of the comments, that I have heard whenever people watch your films, and you're like, how do you get these couples that are always so emotional? And I'm sure that not all of your couples are emotional, but you have but it shows the stuff that you show. A lot of them get really emotional in their films. And I think that is one of the markets that you have tapped into by showing these very emotional films. Then people that are that way are more likely to find you and go to you and want to work with you because they are that
coming
way.
to us for that. But I will say,
Exactly.
This is what you have to be prepared for. And we've taught this many times, is there's always going to be the plus side and the downside. I say downside, though, as long as you're okay with it being what we might consider a downside. We have had, I would say, a pretty good number of high-end weddings consider us but not want to work with us for that very reason. They don't like the vulnerability. They don't want to expose themselves that much. They want a pretty nice event, and they want a video that shows off their gorgeous event and makes them look good. But they don't want that. That's a really big step for them to be that open. And we even had a wedding a few years ago where the photos were featured in Vogue, but we had a non-dissemination agreement on the video. They wanted their photos in Vogue, but they didn't want, and they even said, that's really personal. We don't want that out there. Because they didn't do it ahead of time. Like, we even talked when we met with them about which part would go online, which part wouldn't. And it wasn't until after we posted like a little bitty Instagram teaser. And it was basically just a gorgeous shot of the bride walking down the aisle because it was this amazing setting. But the groom got emotional. He really teared up. He really cried. And after we posted that, they came back and said, can you take that down? Those are our private memories. But the photos were featured in Vogue.
Yes.
So we've discovered, and I feel bad. I don't want to make a loud cough in my mic. But I think there is a certain high-end area, and this isn't, consistent. We've had a lot of big weddings, but with couples that that are very open. But I think there's a certain area of high-end weddings that, because we show more people than details, because we focus on emotion over that really cinematic, sweeping whatever shot, that a lot of those couples aren't attracted to our work. And like I said, I use the word downside carefully because to us, that's not a downside. We're happy with the people who want to work with us. But we just like to let people know that because we don't want someone to be like, okay, well, I started doing all this really emotional stuff and all of a sudden I'm having a harder time booking weddings at a certain cost, or I don't have planners referring me as much as they used to because I'm not showing their details enough. And we've gotten that before. Like, oh, well, you guys do amazing work, but it doesn't show a million detail shots. I'm like, true, we want to show the beauty of the event, but we care more about people and emotions and faces and that hug from grandma than that place setting. So
I've mentioned it before, especially at the beginning of my career. It was just kind of like I didn't have a journalism background. It was kind of like I show up, I'm filming and just kind of winging it, like that was kind of how I was. And until I would say like 3 or 4 years ago for me, and I know I've talked to you, Rick and Sarah, about this, but I was shooting so many weddings and it was so big, like that I wanted to be impressive or attractive to kind of everybody. And when you do that, you're really, really attractive to nobody. It's more vanilla. It's more, it's not that it's not a pretty film, but like by putting exactly the things you want out there, like you're going to attract more people that want that story. And I think that those are the reasons that like your videos blow up on YouTube and you get people wanting you to travel all over the world, and because people connect to that story, and that's who you want. You don't want somebody that just wants a video person. You want somebody that has to have PenWeddings or fill in the blank with your brand, So anyway, I just thought that was worth mentioning.
Yeah, but that's exactly it. And that I think is why we've been able to maintain the business we have, is because there may be a certain group of people who are turned off by really vulnerable work, but the people we want to work with, they are very drawn to that. It's not just, oh, this is pretty. It's this is what I want. This is what I need. And so you get those people who feel like they just have to have that.
And those people also make it more enjoyable for you on wedding day too.
Yeah.
Because
And it gives you the freedom, that creative freedom, right? I mean, where you feel like, oh, they want me there for what I do. So now I can do this instead of have to like tiptoe around because they're a certain way.
Yeah. The best thing that bride can tell you is like, I trust you. Do what you need to do. I trust you.
Yeah. It's good.
Okay. Yeah, I love that. The whole attract and repel, show what you want to shoot. You know, those are all these principles that we've, talked about on our podcast for a lot. I know we have a time for another one. Peter Aponte asked a question. He says, this is for Rick. He says, how do you manage to take such steady shots with a 70 to 200 on a monopod? And then he wonders if Sara applies stabilization in post, or is that pretty much straight out of
thought
camera?
you were going to ask Peter's question about, is that how we dress on wedding days? Wasn't that Peter who said that?
Yeah,
The fact,
Probably.
the fact that Peter asked like just a regular actual question is kind of like, did somebody steal Peter's laptop?
I mean, can't he just Photoshop the answer in there and feel good?
Yeah.
I guess, yeah. I mean, it's mostly just the monopod. I mean, I don't know how I do it.
It is the Sura with the, the really strong feet, the locking feet.
I just try not to shake when I'm shooting, I guess. I don't know. I mean, there are several. I mean, there are times when you have to add a little stabilization to something, but yeah, it's mostly just out of camera.
When he's shooting, I wonder if he's thinking about, like Rick does the processional, the shot of people coming down the aisle at him and during the processional. Mm-hmm. He's typically shooting that kneeling down low, so obviously your monopod is more stable when it's not fully extended. And
if you're kneeling too, I mean, you're hunkered down, so you're not swaying as much and that kind
and
of
also
thing.
and actually I don't know if you do this anymore though because of wearing glasses when you shoot now, but even
because I'm old. Terrible thing.
When we made the switch from are you guys like sponsored by any camera manufacturers?
Not yet.
Not yet.
I don't want to get you in trouble.
Get it in while you can.
When we made the switch from Canon to Sony, we still use a lot of Canon glass. When we made the switch from Canon to Sony, one of the nice things was being able to use the viewfinder. On Canon DSLRs, you couldn't. You had, when you're shooting video, it was all the back of the screen. You couldn't actually use the viewfinder.
So it's another point
of stabilization. Yeah. Every point of contact helps stabilize. So, I mean, yeah, there are times, usually more handheld stuff, if we need to apply a little stabilization. His walking down the aisle shots.
Solid.
I was going to say, typically I don't have to apply stabilization. Usually I don't. We practice too. I mean, I will say this is going back several years, but we practice as well. I mean, I'm trying to think how long ago this was. A long time ago when Rick was he wasn't full-time with the business yet, so we had some other shooters who worked with me when he couldn't. And we went out on a parking lot one day and spent probably an hour taking turns walking
circles.
And everyone just practiced pulling focus and keeping a steady shot. I mean, there is something to be said for practicing things not on wedding day. And I think that's something a lot of wedding videographers don't do. We try new things out on the wedding day. Everything's run and gun on the wedding day, but we don't think about actually practicing techniques away from a shoot.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. That's like just because I'm a professional wedding videographer, so I think, I buy a drone and now I'm just going to be good at it because I'm a professional wedding videographer. Or, there is something to practicing and doing it. I think, John, we have time for maybe one more question.
Yeah, I saw.
Do you have one that's really sticking out to you?
Jason Belkov. I liked this.
That was the one I was going to ask.
It's fate.
Jason. It's fate. He just says audio. I'd like to know how they are capturing such great sound bites during prep throughout the day. Are they putting lav mics on certain people or are using a good shotgun? What do they say to the bridal party to consistently get such natural conversations? That one we kind of answered, but the first part there. Okay, he's getting a microphone.
Yes,
out,
to all of the above.
If
we do put lavs on the couple sometimes during preps, especially story time. We do mic our brides as well. But yeah, during preps, we love this bad boy for a couple reasons. This is the Shure lens hopper. One of the main reasons we like it is you can use it just like any on-camera shotgun mic if you want to plug it in to your camera. But it also has a spot for micro SD card. And so when you record directly to that, the audio is so much cleaner because you're not running it through your camera's preamps.
We don't even plug it into the camera.
We don't plug it in anymore. We put it on the camera, but we don't even plug it in. We just roll on it and sync it up later. And so that is really nice. And we still, though, I mean, you can still get decent on camera nats if you're in a rush, if you don't have the shotgun mic out. And we will gauge the situation in terms of, like, I know a lot of people talk about music during preps. Do you turn music off or not? And we, again, with the whole trying to keep the environment as real as possible, gauge the situation. If we have music that we know is loud enough that it might disrupt our video, but it's not crucial, like we can tell they're all chatting enough that if I go turn that down, they're not going to notice, I'll just go turn it down. But we don't immediately turn music off, because sometimes you have people who are nervous and they need it. Like, that's their happy place. Sometimes we get the best footage because people start dancing to it. Obviously, we're not going to use sound from that moment if they say something, but we've had a lot of moments where we got really fun footage of the wedding party because they started dancing to whatever music they were playing. So being aware of your surroundings, knowing, okay, in this moment, I want to turn this music down. They're about to tell some fun story.
And also being ready. Something Sarah said earlier about always being prepared, with that camera in your hand. And if you even have an inkling of thinking that something's going to be said that might be cool to use.
If I don't have a lav on someone, I know I got to get close to them right now.
Yeah,
I can't shoot this on a 70-200 from across the room. This moment, I got to get.
Yeah. And just be prepared to get it.
And same thing, kind of about being prepared, listening. One of the times we had some bridesmaids just like rocking out to music. I didn't want to turn music off, but it was a day where they were worried the outdoor ceremony might get rained out, so they started saying they were doing like a rain dance or something. This is our anti-rain dance, and so. At that point, we had enough of a rapport where I could be like up close to them and they weren't weirded out by it. And also, I know we need to wrap up, but like we've gotten to where I'm not as concerned about the fourth wall as I used to be. I before really didn't like breaking the fourth wall, and I've kind of gotten away from that. And I think maybe it's just because the world we live in now, everyone's got their phone, their video, Instagram, everything. So we're more comfortable with interacting with the camera. And so as soon as the music got between songs, I'm thinking about it in my mind. I'm thinking about the edit. Okay, the music just stopped. I know another song's going to start in about 5 seconds. So as it died off and I knew it was just getting low enough, I got up in this one girl's face and was like, wait, what are you guys doing? And got her saying, it's our anti-rain dance. Now, they had already said it several times, but it was unusable because the music was so loud. But thinking about the edit in the moment, I'm like, okay, I've got to get her saying this while I'm between songs. But it wouldn't have worked to say, can we turn the music off? And me have you say this. Right. Because the whole point was here they were doing it and jamming out. And I just needed that brief little split second for saying, our anti-rain dance, anti-rain dance.
Man, so good. So good. Tons of
Let's make
great...
this a 2-hour episode, Nick. Just keep going.
Just keep going.
They're fine.
Keep going.
Don't ask them. Just keep
really
going.
bored with us really fast.
Yeah. No. Thank you, Rick and Sara, so much for joining us and being on our podcast. If there is anyone out there in the world that doesn't know who you guys are and wants to check out some of your work or follow you on social media, where should they go do that? Where should they find you?
Pretty much everything is whatever at PenWeddings. It's one in. Common mistake. Like a pin, you're right, with PenWeddings.com. So Instagram, we're PenWeddings, PenWeddings.com, YouTube.com/PenWeddings.
I'm at our Pendergraph for some really cool behind the scenes me stuff.
He does have some really good posts. I laugh out loud almost every time he posts. So, legit, I do.
I have to edit him sometimes. Every now and then I'm like, wait, what did you just tweet?
Oh man, that's good. So at PenWeddings and almost everything, you can find them find them there. Be sure to follow Rick for some great behind the scenes stuff as well. Also, all of you, whenever you're done listening to this, go check out Wedding Film Retreat. That's weddingfilmretreat.com. January 26th through 30th in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. The Pens will be there. Henry Martins, Jonathan and Kay, Matt Johnson will all be there. It's going to be a great time. And then 30 of your closest friends, or will be your closest friends after you spend 5 days with all of them. Again, thank Rick and Sara for being on here. If you're watching this on YouTube, be sure to subscribe to our channel. Share this video with someone that might like it. If you're listening on podcast, make sure you rate and review us. Join our Facebook group. Man, there's so much stuff for me to talk about to wrap it all up.
We're blowing up, Nick. We're
thanks
going
a lot of links there.
Oh, man. Thanks again for everyone for listening, watching, and until next time, we'll see ya.
Thanks, guys.
See ya.
Yeah.